What went we out into this wilderness to find?
Thanks, Robert, for taking the time to chat with us today.
Pleasure, yeah.
I thought we would kick things off. If you could just start by telling us a little bit about yourself.
About myself? Oh gosh, I'd rather tell you about the film. I live in Brooklyn. I've been trying to be a director for a while, directing theater and things, and paying my bills as a designer. And finally, I wrote a script that someone thought wasn't so weird that they actually wanted to make it, which was very fortunate. And now it seems to be out there. And it was like, 5 years of telling people that someone would want to watch a Pilgrim horror movie in Jacoby in English. And it seems that there actually are some people who do want to see that.
Nice.
So it's nice.
Well, people definitely do. So let's talk about that. I was fortunate enough to see a press screening a couple weeks ago. I got the very last seat in the theater, so I just barely got in, which was awesome, and it was great. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the film?
Sure. Basically, The Witch is a story about an English family that moves to the Massachusetts Bay Colony in 1630, and the father is such an extreme Puritan that he actually clashes with the ministry in the English settlement. So he moves his family out to start their own farm away from everything. Unfortunately, there's a witch there, and things don't go very well for them. And basically, the idea is to create like a super immersive, authentic 17th century world where we would be able to believe in witches the same way that the Puritans would have, and also to like really present the witch at her most like archetypal and primitive and extreme, and it's not any kind of like amplification necessary. Like upon doing the research and understanding how people understood witches to be in the early modern period, like I think it's pretty intense. I mean, like I wanted to make like a Puritan's nightmare, something like if we could sort of have that uploaded into our brains, that was the goal.
Cool.
So can we expand a little bit more on the inspiration? Because I mean, what made you go here? Which movie? Because to be honest, I can't recall the last time somebody's done a pure epic witch tale, which this is, which is amazing. What made you go in that direction? What inspired you?
Well, I'm from New England, and like it's kind of hard to escape New England's past. You're kind of surrounded by it. Especially, I was from a rural town, so you have these like dilapidated colonial buildings all over the place, and graveyards in the middle of the woods, and the sort of smell of it, and like not to sound like a new age weirdo, like the energy of it or something, that unexplainable is there. And, and I've always been really into witches. Like my earliest dreams and nightmares were about witches, and I've had tons of dreams about witches all through this thing and writing it in the whole Shazam. They seem to be gone, so this must have worked accidentally.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. But yeah, and so making an archetypal New England horror story, which was, I needed to be like witches. And so like I went back to source material and looking at like stuff actually from the period. And what was really interesting is that aside from like the extreme intelligentsia, the real world and the fairy tale world were kind of the same thing. Like, yeah, like we're like in this like part of English culture, it's all this like extreme Calvinism, but still like people understood the things witches to be doing the same way they appear in Brothers Grimm. So the woman that we would say is like potentially like a schizophrenic homeless woman, they'd be like, that's a witch, and not only that, she's cutting up babies and flying on broomsticks and doing these kinds of things because that's what witches do. And you'd find the same tropes appearing in like cases of real witchcraft as you would in folktales. So I'm like, okay, so what are the tropes that always appear, like always? Those need to be in this film. What are the ones that like appeal to me personally, like like I connect to personally? Those need to be in the film. And then what are the like weird, exotic, unexpected things that like some of these sort of like forgotten archetypes, those need to be in the film because those are the things that seem kind of like weirdly shocking somehow and unexpected.
I'd love to chat about the process of how The Witch came to life. In our world, in the advertising world, I'm sure you know, the pitch is a huge part of selling ideas. And then we've heard that the pitch is a common thing, and at least that's what the movies make it out to be in Hollywood. Was there a pitch when you were working on getting The Witch together? How did you go about bringing the film to life?
Yeah, there was a bit of a pitch, as we are pitching it now, to get people to see it.
Yeah.
And it went through a lot of different things, and but basically, the Sundance Institute, which is different from the festival, got wind of this, and they there was a program called the Catalyst program, which is like a new lab that they were doing to try to pair investors with projects that they thought would potentially do well in the marketplace. And this was one of the things. So I actually did a very formal pitch, with a PowerPoint presentation, in front of a whole bunch of investors. Funnily enough, the investor that came on from that, I came on the night before just because we had a conversation, and when I was rehearsing the pitch, he came up to me and was like, "We're getting," so it kind of didn't matter.
You mentioned Sundance. I as I was doing some research on The Witch, it seemed like you also screened at Melbourne.
And Karlovy Vary and some other places.
So do you want to quickly chat about what the festival circuit does for a film and how that helps get it going?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, word of mouth is really important, and also getting into your foothold in the press of different countries and places and creating awareness for the film. I think that we're lucky that this film has some good distributors, and I think it can actually be seen by people. But certainly, even smaller films, it's a chance for them to just reach audiences. But certainly, we've garnered a lot of attention through festivals, and it's been very, nice.
Yeah, that's amazing. I noticed it's on the poster, and that you won a directing award at Sundance for The Witch. Congratulations on that. In ad industry, as I'm sure you know, many agencies put a lot of value on awards. It's meaningful to talk about the work and demonstrate its success. How is a recognition like that? How do you feel about that? How does it help The Witch?
What do you guys think? I don't know. I mean, I think that obviously being, honored for your work in such a way is a really amazing thing. And, I did think there was going to be some audience for this film, but I didn't think that it was going to get the kind of attention that it's gotten so far.
It's pretty awesome. You shot in Northern Ontario.
Yes, sir.
So a couple questions on that. How was it like working with the crews up here? But more importantly, how did that add? Obviously, you go there because it's got a similar feel to New England. Did it add anything to the telling of the story, the richness of the story?
Yeah, I mean, I was like, oh, we're going to Canada, wilderness everywhere. We're going to find the location in no time. But it took months and months and months and months and months, because where we actually were able to shoot, there was so much logging that there's these tiny little planted red pine forests that look really puny. And so we had to keep going further and further out to find white pines and hemlocks that had any kind of presence and looked like New England. So finally we were out in the middle of nowhere, and it was very remote, and it was very difficult, for a modern film to not have cell service and Wi-Fi, it was a big deal. And we were traveling 45 minutes to an hour every day to get to set. And so, we were vulnerable like the Puritans, but there was some of that. But it was also great. I mean, the carpenters up there did an incredible job, and I think that the integrity of the set that was built, very often using the traditional techniques, and certainly everything that's on camera is made with the correct materials. These guys did an amazing job, and we were really fortunate to work with those carpenters up north.
I'm going to jump ahead a bit because I think it's a good segue to talk about the set design. You were a set designer. It's clear in the film how much you put into this, how much that says about the storytelling. Can you tell me about how important that was to you and to the story?
Well, I mean, look, I think that everyone gets really excited about when people are like trying to be super authentic. I don't know what the fascination is, but everyone is like, wow, that sounds like that person cares and is determined or something. And I mean, like when you're doing it, you're setting a really high bar. And so like collaboratively, like everyone is like, yeah, we're gonna get this. It's gonna be perfect. It's gonna be period accurate. And period accuracy doesn't really matter. And it's like, and no one even really knows. Like I could tell you something's accurate and you could convince you, but I could be lying. And it's all interpretation anyway. But I think that like when you're putting the time to put that in there, like I think that what it's really doing is creating like a convincing world and a convincing atmosphere, whether it's actually authentic or not, and like trying to like articulate something that feels like this is like my memory, this is my child. I grew up in the 1630s and I can share this with you, and so you're really transported there. And by having that kind of like obsession with the details, that's how it can actually be transportive, even if it's finally accurate or not. But certainly we were working with the experts to try to understand what was accurate.
But I'm sure even the actors themselves, in a situation where you are taking that extra step, that extra level of detail, it rubs off on them too, right?
Yeah, I mean, Anya, who plays Thomasin, was saying today it was very easy for her because she just felt like I'm in the 17th century, like check it out, like that's all that's around, So that's it's good.
It's a great cast, wonderful actors in the film. What was the process for you to cast the cast, and what was it like to work with them?
Yeah, so again, like with this lucky situation of finally finding the right investors who really got what I was trying to do, and I was able to cast whoever I wanted, and so it wasn't just people who were right for the roles, but which they were and were good, but it was people who I also thought were good people, and we would work well together. And I knew that the shoot was going to be really arduous and intense, so that was really important. That it was going to be a safe and healthy working environment, especially getting into this really dark, messed up material. That like the children would be safe and it would be a nice thing, blah blah blah. And that was great. And so we had, which is a luxury for this budgetary level, we had a week of rehearsal. It was also like necessary, but it was fantastic, and we're all remain very close. And man, the actors are incredible all in their own way. They like really delivered more than I could have ever asked for. So.
That's awesome. Cool. Speaking of the dialect, I noticed the film states, and you mentioned this earlier, that period sources were used for reference. Could you talk about what those sources were and how you used them?
Yeah. So, this period is like a really interesting period for the English language because common people had like larger vocabularies, and like the Bible was like entertaining. Shakespeare was like popular culture that everyone could grasp. And in New England, it was against the law not to teach your children how to read because reading the word was so important. And so to find a will of like a common farmer, and it's really beautifully written, because this is what's dancing around his head, was really kind of exciting. But anyway, the point is there was lots of journals and diaries and court records and all these kinds of things to like kind of pull from. And I did like research like Jacobean grammar, and I made my own phrase book. I would like pull through sources and make like these are different phrases for different kinds of scenarios. And of course, this is my own interpretation of something that could be authentic. It could never be like this is how they spoke. Who knows? And also, like there are certain things that I omitted so that like we would be sure to like understand, or it would be sort of goofy. But yeah, I mean, it was a lot of work, but I like this stuff, and it didn't seem too like foreign for me. But I think that's more or less.
Great. Robert, thank you. On behalf of Dentsu Boston 360i, thank you for your time today.
Totally.
It was great to chat.
Yeah, thanks.
That was awesome, man. Cheers. Congratulations.
You've cursed this family.
Let us leave the wood.